Kenny Dillingham says that this quarterback battle is still active. People are still going at it, but only one quarterback got the first team reps here in practice on Monday.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every...
Welcome back to Locked On Sun Devils. Happy Tuesday. We have big news. The offense is changing all over the place. Yeah, plus casual $55 million injected into the program. But we just have to start, Parker, with the fact that it appears we have our quarterback. Kenny Dillingham isn't willing to say so, but as the Romans said, actions speak a whole lot louder than words.
It's officially a two-man race, Phil, but if you can do some projecting, some looking deeper, reading between the lines, it's looking like Cutter Boley has provided some separation, especially in the eyes of the coaches. Now, when it comes to on the field, Phil, it is, to me, looking like it's a lot closer than it appears with Cutter Boley. He's looking sharp. He is looking clean, but so is Mikey Keene. But when it actually comes to receiving those reps, the first team action at practice, Cutter Boley is just getting those reps. The coaches, the way that they talk about him in certain ways, it just appears like the coaching staff, they just have an eye for Cutter Boley. And at this point in the season where you're getting close to naming a starter, there is just such an edge for Cutter Boley. It would just be a shock if Mikey Keene went out there and was named QB1.
Yeah, you got to remember as well, Parker, that if we're in a scenario where it is August 17th, as we're recording this after the Monday practice, and Cutter Boley is seen as good or better in his third year of football than Mikey Keene is with his thousands and thousands and thousands of yards and hundreds of snaps, probably thousands of snaps across 6 years of football, you can project forward and say, yeah, if Cutter Boley is better now, he is certainly going to be better by week 1. He's going to be better by week 2 going forward. And if you look at it, the big problems that we had with Cutter about just worried about going in. Is he going to throw the ball into traffic? Is he going to learn to throw it away better? How's that going to work? If there's one thing I've been paying attention to, Parker, it's the fact that he is throwing the ball away when he needs to. Like that is, if there was a bellwether mark that said this is going to be Cutter Boley being QB1 or not, is he going to force a throw into dangerous situations, or is he just going to throw it away when the play's not there? And if you look at what he did in scrimmage, you look at what he did in the 11-on-11s today, he was totally fine. He wasn't forcing the dangerous throws. I mean, yesterday, Josiah McGrew had a really nice pick, but he's a ball hawk. I mean, we're going to see a lot of that this year of him doing that to other quarterbacks. I wouldn't be all that worried because Cutter Boley is throwing the ball away when he needs to.
And that's exactly the thing that coaches have been looking at. It was clear at the start of this quarterback race, high-risk throws were going to be looked at because it doesn't really matter what the percentage is. Well, it does in the grand scheme of things if it's really good. But throwing the ball into those jeopardy situations where one tip could change its trajectory and all of a sudden it's an interception, that's something that these coaches have really taken a look at. They want guys that are going to make the smart decisions. And over these past couple practices, Phil, Keene and Boley have made really good decisions. They've been throwing the ball away, but as you said, it's that progression that we've seen from Cutter Boley. He has really taken a next step over these past couple of fall practices. Now, first couple practices at fall camp, the interception bug, a couple of turnovers. But ever since then, Phil, a switch has been flipped. He has looked really, 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 really clean. And all of a sudden, it has really become Cutter Boley's race to lose.
It really has. And, we've talked about it a little bit. There's this stat that you see on Pro Football Focus. You see on, others called the turnover-worthy play, TWP. And what that says is it takes a look at the passes that are not necessarily, they don't have to be picked off. They could be picked off, but they just look at the throws that are in situations where they're likely to be a turnover. Cutter Boley had 16 of them last year. From what I'm hearing, from what the coaches are saying, there may be some coach speak here, but he just isn't doing that. Like there's really, in the hundreds of snaps that we've seen over fall, there just really haven't been all that many. I mean, he didn't have a turnover on the scrimmage on Saturday. Do you want to, we can call the bad snap with a second string center. It hit like his fingernail off to the side. I mean, maybe Fetty comes down with it. He's got a little bit, maybe better quick twitch, but I'm not calling that Cutter. Like, that was just a bad snap, right? We can't hold that against Cutter Boley. And everything else has been clean. You know, he threw, again, a pick today out of a bunch of snaps in 11 on 11s. That's Josiah McGrew. I am very happy with what he's doing, especially because he's moving the ball with his legs as well. We talked, you know, there was all this worry about, is he going to be a mobile quarterback? He looked great in the design runs. He looked great in the scrambles. It's just, he's starting to figure things out. I mean, that's exactly what you want out of fall. There's going to be an acclimation period, but yeah, Parker, he's figuring things out now. The game isn't coming quite as fast, or I should say the playbook isn't coming quite as fast to him anymore.
And Phil, that's the part that I think a lot of people really skip over when it comes to this race. How much Cutter Boley has the opportunity to expand the playbook in comparison to Mikey Keene. Now, I will say the argument for Mikey Keene is there is an argument that he will run the offense more fluid than Cutter Boley at the start of the season. There is a legitimate argument, and it makes sense with all the reps that Mikey Keene has, Phil. But Cutter Boley is just purely a better athlete right now than Mikey Keene, and part of it is because of the frame that he has, a near 6'4" frame, over 200 pounds, just a real tank of a human being when it comes to the quarterback position in his frame. And you nestle all that, Phil, with the fact that that he has some really underrated speed. He's a guy that, yes, can throw the ball away and is showing that he's making smart decisions, but if there's a designed run for him and he has to improvise and maybe scramble out, try and get the first down, he's willing to do it just because he has that speed. And when you have a guy like that, you have a guy that you can trust in those situations, it makes the playbook all the more interdimensional because he can just, because with the way that we saw the playbook geared towards Sam Levitt, when he was injured, it shrunk exponentially. Cutter Boley, it doesn't look like he's a guy that is going to be one of those, okay, I'm going to run out of the pocket in this situation like we saw with Sam Levitt. It's more so going to be last-ditch effort, I can trust my legs, which can make the playbook grow in a different way from what we saw under previous years.
Especially because he spent the summer, I assume, learning there at BO, because he was working with Taylor Kelly the entire summer. And it's nice. I know you're talking about just being able to make things happen with your legs. It is so nice that, I mean, we've had mobile quarterbacks. Sam Levitt was a mobile quarterback. I look back to Jaden Daniels, Manny Wilkins, different levels of quarterback, but a lot of them were string beans. You look at him in the wrong way. You're like, God, I hope he didn't get hurt. I really hope he's going to be fine. And Cutter Boley, as you said, you know, he's a tank, 6'5". He's a big guy. He can go, and while I don't ever want a quarterback really throwing themselves into harm's way, he can learn to be a bit of a gamer. Yeah, take some of those shades from some of the stuff that Sam Levitt did and just have, you know, a little bit less of an injury risk. We should point out, though, as we kind of put a close here, you and I both have been pretty heavy doubters on Cam Dyer about how he's, you know, like, he's the fourth quarterback. You read Michelle Gardner's coverage of things. He's like, you know, Fetty was athletic. Boley was accurate, was efficient. Keene had some nice long throws. Cam Dyer was the fourth quarterback, which was, oh, okay, that was a little mean. But apparently, if you look at the post-practice comments today, Dillingham was saying, Kenny was saying, look, he was out of it. He was very out of this, any sort of competition, but he started to kind of claw his way back into the discussion a little bit. Now, does that mean he's going to start week one or at all this season? No, not at all. He's not going to start. But it does lead to maybe some interesting questions about Jake Fetty and Cam Dyer next year. Now, something to pay attention to, how that's going to go, especially with a 4-star quarterback coming in from California as well. A lot of questions about the future, still probably Jake Fetty. But Parker, none of that matters if the offensive line cannot hold up against the pass rush. And there was a big development in terms of who is guarding Cutter Boley's left side. That's next. Locked On Sun Devils is brought to you by FanDuel, because there are like 170 odd games or days of the MLB season before you get on to the postseason. And if you think you know who's going to go deep in every single one, you can call your shot for free with Daily Dingers. It's really easy. You just go and say, yeah, I think the Tigers, when they play the Twins today, I think that, you know, this player's going to go hit a home run. And I say he's going to hit a home run. I hit the button. And then if I win, if I'm right, I get a profit boost on my next bet. It's really easy. And it's just a great way to stay engaged in a rather long MLB season. You know, like as a Sun Devil fan, I'm a little bit biased. I just put my button on Spencer Torkelson every single game because he hits a lot of homers. He's a former Sun Devil. So if you want to do the same thing, you can join in all the action at FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick, an official partner of the MLB. Quarterback battles are fun to talk about, and they are. We've spent a lot of time this offseason, but none of it matters if the edge rusher is on them in 2.3 seconds. And that is why we have had a big development in everything that's happening here in fall practice. Every single first team snap at left tackle has been Champs Westbrook's. He's got a great upside. He's athletic. He's got a great family. His dad's like in our comments all the time. We love the guy. But he let up 2 snaps on Saturday, and now it's Luke Baklenko moving over to take the first team reps, Parker.
Yeah, Baklenko's a guy that really everybody has had their eyes on ever since he stepped foot on campus. A highly decorated transfer coming out of Oklahoma, and really, he is just a physical specimen to behold, and he is looking like he's the veteran presence that this Arizona State offensive line has been needing, especially on that left side. And Westbrook's, for his shortcomings, he's had some great moments, but overall, the offensive line has to set the tone. It has to set the intensity. Kenny Dillingham, Arroyo, everybody a part of the coaching staff. They know how important not only the offensive line is, but the left side of the offensive line especially. So it makes sense that the offensive line is shaking up at this part just because we know that there are some moving pieces. There are a lot of fresh faces on this team, one of them, ironically, not being Champ Westbrook's. But with these new pieces that are coming in, it makes sense that there are guys fighting for these positions because as much as we mentioned Baklenko and other members of this offensive line shooting up the depth chart, there's guys like Jermaine Mitchell that have just gotten into ASU, just gotten into the level that continue to fight for those spots.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? I am hopeful. I mean, look, we got a true center this year. We had Wade Helton was a lot of snaps at center last year after Coleman didn't work out. But Jermaine Mitchell didn't practice today. He was held out of practice. He is the number 1 JUCO guy coming out of, we outbid Georgia to get him. We flipped him. He had a lot of promise. Very excited about Jermaine Mitchell. And it's just not clicking for him yet. So we don't have Jermaine Mitchell. Another young guy, Champs Westbrook's, after, what are we in, year 3, year 2? I think we're year 2 for him. He is just, he's not developing as quickly as the coaches expected him to. And I have full hope that Sakatuatele is going to go forward and make it better, and he's going to get there, but not right now. And it does lead to some serious questions about the depth of this offensive line. I mean, Luke Baklenko, he was a backup at Oklahoma. You talk about look at the fans when you go to the CFB subreddit when that transfer was announced, and they said, look, he's going to be great for you guys. He is not a SEC level starter. He's a great backup. He can fill time. He is not the guy you need to be in there when you just really need time in the pocket. That's what the fans were saying. Now, take that with a grain of salt. I want top level talent in my offensive line. Apparently, I saw someone doing the math. Average college quarterback takes about 2.5, 2.6 seconds or so to go and make their reads and get the ball off on average. Cutter Boley is like 2.71 is from what we were seeing in the past. Now, I hope that's something that Marcus Arroyo, Kenny Dillingham are going to be able to put together. But we need an offensive line that can hold the line and make sure the pocket doesn't break down. Because again, Parker, this is not Sam Levitt. As excited as we are that Cutter Boley he has more mobility than previously thought. He does not have Sam Levitt mobility. He does not have Jake Fetty mobility. That's just not his game. And if he is going to get flushed out of the pocket over and over again and not have the chance to go through his progressions, not have a chance to get the ball out, we've been saying it all summer. I don't care how good our running back room is. I don't care how good our tight ends are. I don't care that we have the best Big 12 with the best wide receiver room in the Big 12. None of that's going to matter if our quarterback cannot have effective time to get the ball to those guys.
And Phil, part of me, when I first was hearing about, okay, how's the offensive line look? Part of me was thinking about, okay, it's the defense that has continually pushed this offensive line in reps, because that's all we're hearing about, especially in Tontozona, was how the defense has set the tone when it comes to pass rushing and their ability to get to the quarterback. And that's all fine for, I would say, the first The first couple of opponents, I mean, Morgan State, you can argue Kansas, Hawaii, maybe Baylor, but Texas A&M, Phil, their defensive line is one of the most physical units in the entire country. I believe they're ranked 8th in the AP poll at this moment, and their defense is their headliner. And the offensive line has to be playing the best game, really, of all season in order to match the physicalness that Texas A&M is going to bring. So this shakeup at this point in time, it's really a moment where it's like, okay, rubber meets the road. Who's going to be the people that make the decisions, that really step up and really lock in for these next couple weeks? Because you can afford to have some mistakes, and it's all good that the defense is stepping up, and it's leading to the offensive line to have these quandaries that they're having. I mean, guys getting back there, forcing some sacks on Cutter Boley in practice. I mean, you don't love to see it, but at the same time, it's a positive takeaway for the defensive side of the ball. But when it comes to this offensive line, it really has to be, okay, we have to really start locking in. We have to really start playing our best football. Because even though we have Morgan State week 1, and that's a great tune-up, with Texas A&M and then Kansas the net following weeks, it's really, you really just have to be ready.
Yeah, it is. I'm a little worried. I mean, on the one hand, I think our offense is going to be fine. I think our defense is going to be, as I said in the episode yesterday, I think we're going to be a top 3 defense in the Big 12. And I don't think that's all that crazy considering everything we've been seeing. But I am worried about this offensive line. And I'm worried about the depth of this offensive line as well. If, Champs is just not cutting it yet, and he's got to go to level 2. Our second string center was struggling in the scrimmage as well. I'm like, that gets me. That gets me a little bit. I hope we're going to be able to put it together. And, Parker, part of it is, you can say, well, yeah, the defense is ahead of the offense at this point in the fall. That's not the weirdest thing. It's a little bit easier for them to go and make sure they're covered than it is for the entire offense to come together and get that chemistry and figure things out. But still, making a change to the offensive line this late in the fall when it's all about building chemistry between those 5 guys, it's a little spooky. I do prefer this, though, to having an offensive line that is not cutting it going into week 1 and being afraid to make some changes because you feel like you got to rely on the chemistry too much. Given that option, given what we did last year versus making these changes, I would prefer to make those changes. And there's no better way. There's no better spot to go and make those changes, at least in the future, than the newly sponsored, at least newly announced sponsor of the Align practice facility. This is actually massive news, and it comes with finally Arizona State up to the modernity in terms of our practice ecosystem.
This episode of Locked On Sun Devils is brought to you by Game Time. There is plenty of stuff worth seeing right now, whether it's games, concerts, comedy shows, anything in between. And picking the event, it's easy. Buying the ticket is the annoying part. There's wait times, queues, confusing checkout, and worst part, surprise fees at checkout. That's why fans use Game Time. There are 3 big features: upfront pricing, see the view from your seat before you buy, and exclusive savings all on the Game Time app. And really, one of the best things about it is being able to see the price when you actually buy the ticket. Yes, what you see is what you get. I recently went to a Cubs game, and trying to buy tickets was so annoying on all the different sites. Game Time, really upfront, made the whole process so much easier. So go ahead, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today.
It's been fun following fall practice, but this is big news on the ecosystem, the infrastructure side of things. We had some guesses about who was the guy, who was the organization that dropped $55 million to get the practice facility done earlier. Was it Ira Fulton? Who's it going to be? Turns out it's the makers of Invisalign, Parker, and while it's nice to get this facility, you were telling me you had some inside baseball on them just being all over the ASU football program.
Yeah, my office is at ASU, where I go to work as an intern. It really close to a lot of the business side of ASU, if you will. A lot of hush-hush stuff that I can't say. But one thing that I believe I can say is that Align has been working with ASU for a long time on several business ventures, several business practices, and they have such a great partnership. And it makes sense that over these past couple of weeks, over really past months, you could even say years with Align, that it makes sense that they would have this deep of an investment in ASU and be willing to have their name attached to one of the biggest projects in ASU, not only football, but ASU Athletics in recent years.
It's this, and it's the Desert Financial Arena renovation that I want to say is just south of $100 million in what we're putting into it. And yeah, this was a check that was cut back in, what was it, early spring, February, something like that. I think that was when the news came out. $55 million to make this something that, instead of finishing in 2029, is something that's going to be ready spring 2028. That's big news. Again, this is not going to impact the team this year. All right, that's clear. We're at the Kajikawa Fields. We go up to Camp T. We have our facilities that we have. But it is going to impact the team in the future. It is going to allow us. I mean, the rendering is up, and I'm going to throw it up on screen. It had, like, the rendering, I didn't realize quite how close this thing was going to be to Arizona State, or to the stadium itself. It is, like, right next door. It doesn't have a sky bridge. It could have a sky bridge. It is super, super close. And that is really nice. Again, we talk about it for the perspective of for tailgating. Graham Rossini talks about the hospitality elements of the amount of indoor space we have that will allow people. I mean, they're going to charge for it, but letting people go tailgate, certainly the early season games, without just dying in the late summer, early fall Tempe heat. The fact that it's a couple hundred feet of grass, indoor, outdoor, a couple hundred yards, all that. It's a big deal. But it's also really nice to see not just people, not just wealthy individuals putting a ton of money into the Arizona State program, but big corporate sponsors coming in. Because, Parker, at the end of the day, NIL as a personal sponsor thing is, whoever, you're just dropping $20 million, $50 million, whatever. That's not sustainable in the long run. Companies, big naming deals, that is something that actually can be a little bit more sustainable year over year.
And it's plain to see, Phil, with the jerseys the ASU is going to have to trot out next year. They have the big monster patch.
Oh yeah,
on their on the jersey.
We bought a quarterback's left leg with the money from from the monster patch.
And it yet to be determined on future sponsorships where it comes to on-field patches, on the field sponsorships, but it is clear, Phil, that it's not going to go away. This is something with all the changing litigation that's going in college football. Companies are just going to have a bigger hold on the sport for years to come. And with the good, with the bad, one thing is clear, and that means there's going to be a whole lot more money involved in college football in every single team than years previous. And it's clear to see that it both has bad impacts that we've seen with all the under-the-table stuff, but when it comes to actually providing for these teams and for these athletic programs, it's great. That's money the ASU doesn't really have to worry about in the grand scheme of things. I mean, how many teams have we heard about, Phil, that have been in the red over these past couple seasons? They just haven't been able to afford anything. Yeah, the school down south having problems with their finances, and I've heard of Cal. I think Miami. I can't remember if it was Miami of Ohio or Miami of Florida.
The number I think Duke was spending as well. There are a bunch of them that are like Syracuse, I think, is an awkward spot. There are a bunch of them. Clemson, Clemson's a big one, actually. They're in a really rough spot. That are just, they're out spending because they have to. And they're like, we got to be competitive here. And we really can't afford it in the long term. But what's also really interesting about this deal, Parker, is it's not just a football deal. Like, I very much expected when this was announced, someone's going to say, yep, we paid $55 million for a practice facility. Awesome. Thank you very much. We'll plaster your name on top of it. We'll tell everyone why you should have Invisalign braces instead of regular braces, or whatever it is. But this is a Michael Crow deal. Like, we talk about Graham Rossini, this is a Michael Crow deal, and he's like, yeah, you're also going to be funding our research. There's going to be a research component of this as well. That's not announced just yet. We don't know what that is. But, I mean, talk about number one in innovation, right? Michael Crow has his finger, of course he is. It's a $55 million deal. But he's got his fingerprints like all over this thing.
And it makes sense, Phil, with all the new colleges that are popping up over ASU. New medical program here at ASU, always talking about innovation. it makes sense they're trying to make this as big as possible, because really that's what you have to do to try and get as much money as possible as well, is how can we take this money and how can we make this partnership and expand it to all different levels?
Yeah, and it's kind of wild as well. It's like, not just research. They have an internship program now that they're going to pipeline Arizona State students because they bought us a practice facility. I'm like, okay, we're going to get students jobs. We're going to have better market research. Apparently, they've been doing more stuff, too. They had signage at Mountain America Stadium, DFA, Mullet Arena. They supported several athletes through NIL deals. They just love Arizona State sports. And their offices are like right across the Salt Lake. So they're very close by. It's awesome to see a big company going in and supporting things. And I can just only hope that this is going to be the first of a couple. I know that Graham Rossini has talked about, I think he talked about the scrimmage on Saturday, about how with the jersey patches, we're on the way. We're not announcing anything yet, but there are discussions there. And I can assume it's more than $1.25 million for the Monster. Okay. Like, to give Monster Energy some credit, that's going to be global Big 12 signage. We saw it on a NASCAR car recently. So, pros and cons. But we should get a little bit more money there, continue to see things evolve, and just be really excited about the trajectory of Arizona State sports, because there's a lot to like, even if we're not quite sure what's happening on the offensive line. And even if our quarterbacks aren't always executing the way we would like, the ecosystem is there. And that is really what makes things fun. But that's going to do it for us here today. If you've not already done so, make sure you go like this video, ring the notification bell, and set it to all, by the way. Again, YouTube's algorithm, setting it to all, make sure you're not going to miss something. And let us know who else, who's next, what big company needs to drop a whole dump truck of money on ASU facilities or NIL or something like that. And of course, if you've not already done so, we're going to send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On College Network, where you can see everything that's happening all in the wide world of college sports. If you are on Apple or Amazon or Spotify, make sure your second listen is Locked On Big 12. Drake Doll does a great job covering all of that. Tomorrow, I'm going to have a long conversation with Hode Rubino about the state of the program coming out of Camp Tonazona, what to look for as we get ready. Camp ends on Wednesday. Maybe a quarterback announcement then. And we will see you tomorrow.